The rain had been falling in a relentless whisper, the kind that blurred headlights and softened the edges of the world. Los Angeles felt quieter than usual at this hour, as though the city had finally exhaled after a day of carrying too much. Elon Musk walked through the sliding doors of the grocery store, his shoulders heavy, his jaw tight, his mind still echoing with boardroom voices and unfinished equations. He had left his car running outside, the dashboard lights still glowing in the gloom, but he couldn't bring himself to go home just yet. Home meant silence. Silence meant thinking. And thinking hurt. The store was nearly empty. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, pale and cold. A lone cashier scrolled through her phone, barely looking up as he passed. The air smelled faintly of wet cardboard and citrus cleaner. Elon grabbed a small basket, though he didn't even know why he was here. Maybe for water. Maybe for noise. Maybe just for the feeling of being among shelves of familiar things, where choices were simple. Then crash. The sound cut through the aisles like shattering glass. Metal cans hit the floor and rolled, bouncing in uneven arcs. Elon froze, heart punching once against his ribs. He stepped slowly forward, the soft squeak of his shoes the only sound in the quiet. As he turned the corner, he saw them. Two girls, small, frail, identical enough to look like reflections of each other. Their blonde hair hung in tangled strands, soaked through with rain. Their jackets were several sizes too big, sleeves swallowing their hands. One girl was on her knees, frantically stacking the fallen cans back onto the shelf, breathing too fast, her small fingers shaking with urgency. The other stood motionless, clutching a bruised apple to her chest as though it were something sacred, her wide green eyes locked on him. Fear didn't just sit in their faces, it lived there, carved into every line, every movement, every breath. Elon's first instinct was practical. Should he call for someone? The cashier? Security? Someone more equipped? But something in the way the smaller girl's shoulders curled inward stopped him. This wasn't mischief. This wasn't petty theft. This was hunger, cold, desperation. He lowered himself slowly, one knee touching the floor. The polished leather creaked as his weight shifted. He didn't speak at first. He simply held his hands open, empty, visible. "No one's in trouble," he said quietly. His voice surprised even him. It was softer than he expected, thin, almost unsure. "It's okay." The smaller girl flinched, as though kindness was more frightening than anger. The older twin lifted her chin, trying to be brave even while trembling. "We didn't take it," she whispered. "We were just looking." Elon took in the details then. Their shoes, soaked through. Their fingertips, red with cold. Their pockets, bulging slightly with bread, apples, maybe one granola bar. Food that could fit in small hands. Food that wouldn't make noise when carried. Food you take when you're running. He could have asked questions. "Where are your parents? Why are you here? Who is taking care of you?" But those questions belonged to people who had time. These girls did not. He exhaled slowly, controlled, gentle. "How about," he said, keeping his voice steady, "we pay for it first?" The older girl blinked at him, stunned. Suspicious. Hope was a dangerous thing for children who have learned to survive without it. But after a long, shared moment, the kind born of instincts shaped too young, she gave a single, tiny nod. In that small gesture, the world shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just fate choosing a new direction. And Elon knew, without knowing why, that nothing in his life would be the same after this night. The cashier barely glanced up as they approached the counter. Rainwater pooled around the girl's shoes, making small dark shapes on the polished floor. Elon placed the items gently on the conveyor belt. Bread, apples, a few cans of soup, a pack of bandages he'd added without thinking. The older girl tried to set one apple back, her hand shaking as though even this moment of being allowed was too much. "It's okay," Elon murmured. "All of it." The cashier scanned everything, her gum snapping between her teeth. She didn't ask questions. Didn't notice the way Mila, the smaller twin, pressed her locket so hard against her chest that her knuckles turned white. Didn't see the way Arya kept her body angled protectively, like she'd learned to stand between danger and her sister without ever being taught. Only when the automatic doors slid open and the cold night air hit them did the girls hesitate again. The rain had turned to a fine mist, silver under the streetlights. It clung to their eyelashes, their hair, the edges of their torn sleeves. Elon gestured toward his car. "Come on," he said softly. "You'll get sick out here." Arya froze. Her voice dropped to a whisper as if saying it louder might summon something from the dark. "Why are you helping us?" Her question wasn't childish. It was older than either of them had a right to be. A question built from disappointment, from the countless times help had come with a price, or hadn't come at all. Elon opened his mouth and found he didn't have an answer. He could talk about empathy. He could say it was the right thing to do. He could explain that once, a long time ago, he had been small, lonely, afraid in a house where love was conditional. But none of that mattered. "Because," he said slowly, quietly, truthfully, "you shouldn't be alone in this." Mila leaned into Arya, exhaustion loosening the last bit of tension in her body. Arya's shoulders dropped, not in trust but in surrender. There was no better option. Not tonight. The car was warm, smelling faintly of leather and pine soap. Mila crawled into the back seat, wrapping her arms around the grocery bag like it was a treasure chest. Arya slid in beside her, eyes scanning every shadow, every corner, every mirror. Elon started the engine. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. Mila spoke first, voice small and aching. "Mom used to say, if someone looks at you like they see you, not just look at you, you can follow them." Elon's hands tightened on the steering wheel. For a second, his breath hitched. He didn't understand why those words hit so deeply, until he realized how rarely he felt seen himself. The city lights blurred past the windows, neon signs, palm silhouettes, the long stretch of freeway heading north. Rain streaked the windshield in thin, trembling lines. The girls watched Los Angeles pass outside like it was a world they had never been part of. A world where warmth existed on the other side of windows, where childhood still belonged to children. As they drove, Arya finally spoke again, not to explain, not to answer, but to confess. "We weren't running away," she murmured. "We were told to leave." Elon turned his head slightly, his voice barely a breath. "Told by who?" Arya stared straight ahead. "Our mother." Silence. Then Mila whispered, touching her locket, her voice breaking like thin glass. "She said to find you." For a moment, Elon thought he had misheard her. The car hummed softly beneath them, tires rolling over wet asphalt, but the world inside the vehicle went impossibly still. Rain tapped gently across the windshield, rhythmic and fragile, like fingers on glass. Mila's hand remained fixed on the locket, her small thumb stroking the metal as if it were something alive. Arya's eyes were locked forward, unblinking, wide with the weight of memories no child should have. "She said your name," Mila whispered, as though speaking it too loudly might undo everything. "She said to find the man who helps people, because he would know what to do." Elon felt the words settle in his chest like a stone dropped into a deep, still lake, rippling outward, stirring old griefs, old ghosts. His mother used to say something similar, though about God, not humans. If you don't know what to do, find someone who remembers how to care. He had spent years trying to be that person. Some days he failed. Some days he succeeded. And some days he wondered whether he had lost the ability altogether. "Your mother," he began slowly. "What's her name?" Mila swallowed hard. Arya's fingers tightened in her lap. It wasn't reluctance. It was fear of triggering something bigger. "Her name is Sarah," Arya said. "Sarah Diaz." Elon blinked. The name drifted through his memory. Not familiar, not known, but heavy with meaning somehow. His chest tightened with something he didn't want to name. Regret? Responsibility? Recognition? He didn't know yet. His home came into view, a modern house of glass and light nestled against the dark hillside. To the world, it was magnificent. To him, it had been a quiet echo chamber for years. The driveway sensors recognized his car automatically, lights blooming across the exterior as though the house was waking to greet him. But tonight, something felt different. It didn't loom. It didn't echo. It felt suspended, expectant. When he opened the car door, Mila hesitated at the threshold, one hand gripping the seatbelt. Arya's voice softened, steadying her. "It's just for tonight. Just somewhere warm. We can leave after." Elon didn't say you can stay as long as you need. He didn't say you're safe now. He knew words like that had been thrown at these girls before, like promises that never held. Instead, he simply nodded, stepped back, and let them enter first. The air inside was warm, scented faintly with cedar and lemon oil. Music still played softly from the speakers, instrumental piano, something Elon often left running to fill the silence. But tonight, for the first time in months, the music didn't feel like covering emptiness. It felt like a welcome. Mila's eyes widened at the high ceilings, the long windows, the soft lights. Not in wonder, no. In caution. In disbelief. Because beauty to her was not comfort. Beauty was fragile, breakable, temporary. Arya brushed rainwater from Mila's hair, her movements tender, practiced, protective. Not like a sibling, but like a parent. Elon watched, feeling something inside him tighten with a quiet, invisible ache. "Are you too hungry now?" he asked gently. "Or do you want to rest first?" Mila's lips parted. Hope flickered. But Arya spoke for them both. "Food, but we can't stay long. If we stay too long, he might find us." Elon's voice lowered, steady, careful. Who? The answer didn't come in words, only in the way Arya's body flinched, like a shadow had entered the room. Not the rain, not hunger, not loneliness, but someone out there searching. Someone they feared more than the streets. And Elon understood, with a clarity that chilled him. This was not charity. This was refuge. Elon led them to the kitchen, though he moved slowly, so the moment didn't feel like a command. The house was quiet, too quiet, and the soft click of the refrigerator opening sounded like thunder in the silence. He set food on the counter without looking directly at them. Bread, cheese, strawberries, a carton of eggs, soup warming in a pot. He wasn't trying to impress them. He wasn't offering abundance. He was offering normalcy. Mila climbed onto one of the high stools, her feet dangling, watching steam curl from the pot like it was something magical. Arya stayed standing, eyes never leaving the front door, as though expecting it to burst open at any moment. Elon handed Mila a spoon first. Not to feed her, to let her decide. She dipped it into the soup, but instead of tasting it, she pressed the warm spoon against her cheek, closing her eyes like she was remembering what warmth felt like. Arya didn't touch anything. Not until Mila nodded, permission. Only then did Arya take her own spoon and begin to eat. Small bites, measured, controlled. Children didn't learn that kind of discipline unless hunger had been their teacher for a very long time. Elon sat on the other side of the counter, watching without staring. He didn't ask questions, not yet. Sometimes silence is the first door to safety. When Mila finally looked up, a faint blush of warmth in her cheeks, she whispered, "Thank you." The words were soft but not shy, more like a prayer spoken by someone who didn't know if the God listening would be kind. Elon felt something move inside him. A shift, small, quiet, irreversible. He nodded once. "You're welcome." Arya finished her soup more slowly, her eyes flicking between every sound in the house, the hum of the air system, the distant whisper of wind hitting glass, the low tempo of the piano still playing in the living room. Elon recognized the look, hypervigilance, the kind you develop when the world has taught you that danger doesn't always knock. It simply appears. He knew that look, because he remembered being that child once, a boy hiding in corners of rooms filled with raised voices, a boy who learned silence as armor, a boy who had to teach himself how to be heard. Mila set her spoon down. She reached for her locket again, her fingers trembling. It wasn't just jewelry. It was memory. "Can I see it?" Elon asked gently. Mila hesitated. Arya tensed. Then, after a long moment, Mila carefully opened her fingers. The small gold heart swung slightly on its chain, as if it remembered motion. She opened it. Inside was a faded piece of a photograph, likely once larger, once whole. A young man with dark hair, sunlight dancing across his face, smiling like he believed the world was good. The photo was worn at the edges, as if held often, held tightly. Elon's breath stalled. He recognized the face, not from adulthood, not from newspapers or tabloids, not from genius myths or stories people told about him. He recognized him from childhood, from memory, from emotion. The photograph was of his brother, Cade, the boy he grew up with, the boy he lost too soon. Mila's voice cracked as she whispered, "Mama told us the man in the picture had a brother, and his brother would help us. She said you'd remember him," Arya added, her voice steady but shaking at the core. "She said to find you if everything went wrong." The room tilted. Not metaphorically. Literally. Elon had to put a hand on the counter to steady himself, because memory surged like a tide, too powerful, too bright, too sudden. He remembered Cade laughing on the farm in South Africa. He remembered how everyone said Cade had the gentle heart. He remembered how Cade would give away everything he had and still think it wasn't enough. He remembered the accident. He remembered the funeral. He remembered thinking the world had swallowed all the softness with him, but it hadn't. It had simply gone somewhere he had never looked, into these two trembling girls, into the mother who loved them enough to send them away, into the locket that carried a piece of Cade like a heartbeat preserved. Elon swallowed hard, voice rough. "Your mother knew my brother?" Arya nodded. "He saved us once," she said. "She said if he couldn't come back, you would know how." Elon closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a man trying to solve the world. He felt like a man being given back a piece of his own heart. The rain slowed outside until it became nothing more than a faint, steady whisper against the glass. The house was still, holding its breath around them. Elon stood there with his hand still resting on the countertop, eyes fixed on the small, torn photograph inside the locket. Cade's face, sunlit, unguarded, alive, looked back at him. The picture wasn't something he had ever expected to see again, not in this lifetime, and certainly not like this. His mind flickered through memories, not neat scenes, but fragments. Cade laughing as they raced down a dirt path. Cade pulling Elon behind him when bullies cornered him at school. Cade playing guitar in the dim glow of their childhood living room, humming low and soft. Cade, the boy who believed people were worth saving. And now here were two children Cade never had the chance to introduce. Yet somehow they had found him. Elon inhaled slowly, like he needed time to remember how to breathe. Arya watched him carefully, her expression guarded, assessing the shape of his reaction. She wasn't waiting for him to understand. She was waiting to see if pain made him dangerous. Some children flinch at raised hands. These children flinched at emotional silence. He opened his eyes again. "What happened to your mother?" he asked softly. Mila lowered her head, her fingers tightening around the locket as though holding it could stop new memories from forming. "She got hurt," she whispered. "We don't know how bad, but she told us to run. She said we had to be brave because..." Her voice faltered, thin as spider silk. "Because he was coming back." Arya's jaw tightened in the way of children who have learned to speak for two. "There was a man," she said. "He used to live with us. At first he seemed like he cared. Then something changed. He said, he owned us." Her voice didn't crack. It didn't break. It simply emptied, like she had poured away every tear she had ever been allowed. Mila pressed herself into Arya's side, eyes squeezed shut. "And your mother is still..." "With him?" Elon asked quietly. "No," Arya shook her head. "She tried to leave. She tried to keep us safe. That's why she got hurt. That's why she told us to go." "If we stayed," Mila whispered, voice trembling, "he would have taken us." Elon felt something inside him shift. Not a gentle realization, not soft empathy. Something sharp. A protective force so instinctive and old it didn't come from logic or reason or image. It came from blood, from memory, from the part of his soul that had always belonged to Cade. He crouched so he was eye level with them, not above them, not towering, not intimidating. His voice lowered, warm but steady. "Your mother sent you to me because she believed I would protect you." He paused, not promising yet, not claiming anything he had not earned. "But I want to, and I will. If you let me." Mila's lip trembled. Arya's eyes glistened, not crying, but caught between disbelief and the fragile ache of maybe. They had not heard many promises. They had learned even fewer could be kept. "Elon," Mila asked, barely audible, "is it safe here?" He did not look away. He did not soften the truth. "It is now," he said, because something had awakened in him, something he had forgotten, something he had buried beneath corporations, rockets, headlines, and expectations. Cade's love for the world, Cade's belief in people, Cade's gentle strength. Mila's hand slipped into his, small, cold, trusting despite everything. Arya watched for a long moment, weighing the gesture, then rested her other hand over Mila's. For the first time in their journey, they let themselves exhale. The warmth that filled the space was not dramatic, not cinematic. It was quieter, more human. But the house felt different now, no longer empty, no longer echoing. It felt like the beginning of something that had been waiting years to return. And far beyond the glass walls, somewhere in the sleepless sprawl of Los Angeles, a man who had once owned everything but felt nothing began to feel again. Elon didn't sleep that night. The girls did, curled up together on the sofa beneath a heavy wool blanket, one tiny hand always gripping the other even in dreams. He watched the steady rise and fall of their breathing from across the room, the fire casting soft amber light along their hair. Every so often Mila would whimper, and Arya would instinctively tighten her arm around her, protective even in sleep. Childhood and survival had fused together inside them. There was no separation. The house felt different now. The silence was no longer hollow. It was waiting. Elon moved to the large window overlooking the city. Los Angeles sprawled out beneath him, endless, glittering, restless. A world that moved on without asking who it left behind. A world that had swallowed Cade. A world that, until this moment, Elon had let himself drift through untouched by anything that didn't come in the shape of ambition. He remembered being a boy, lying in bed while Cade whispered stories to him. Stories where good people didn't always win, but they tried. Stories where being strong didn't mean being hard. Stories where love was not weakness. It was the point. He wondered, not for the first time, what kind of man Cade would have grown into. He wondered if Cade would recognize the man standing here now. The first hint of dawn was still hours away, but the storm had cleared. The city lights shimmered through the mist, refracting like constellations fallen to earth. Elon's phone buzzed softly on the table. He didn't want to answer. He already knew the tone waiting on the other end. He picked it up anyway. "Where are you?" A sharp voice, crisp, impersonal, one of his top advisors. "You missed the post-review call. Investors are asking questions." Elon looked toward the sleeping girls. "Let them ask," he said. There was a stunned silence. The voice tried again, more controlled. "Elon, we can't afford another PR distraction. Not after last quarter. If there's a situation involving minors..." Elon cut him off. "There is no situation. There are children who needed help." "Yes, but..." "Good night," Elon said, and hung up. The simplicity of it surprised him. How easy it was to let the world's demands fall away when something real finally took priority. He walked back to the living room. Mila had shifted, her locket visible against her small throat. Elon knelt beside the sofa. Carefully, so carefully, he brushed a damp strand of hair from her forehead. Her breathing didn't change. She didn't wake, but her small hand reached out in the dark and found his. The touch was feather light, uncertain, instinctive. His heart tightened. He stayed there until the sky began to pale at the edges, blue creeping into black, the city stretching awake. Only then did he rise, stepping quietly into the kitchen. He didn't know how to comfort children. He didn't know how to make breakfast the way normal families did. He didn't know how to fill silence the way homes did when love lived inside them, but he could try. He cracked eggs. He sliced fruit. He burned the first pancake and laughed softly under his breath, almost disbelieving the sound. That's when he felt eyes on him. Arya stood at the entryway, barefoot, blanket still wrapped around her shoulders, not approaching, just watching, not evaluating him now through fear, through curiosity, through wonder. "You're cooking," she said. Like the idea itself was something improbable. "Attempting to," Elon replied. Mila's sleepy voice drifted from the sofa. "It smells happy. Happy. Not good. Not safe. Not okay. Happy." The word landed somewhere deep. Elon glanced at the stove, at the smoke curling gently upward, at the soft morning light spilling across the floor, at the small figures standing there, fragile and brave. For the first time in years, the morning did not feel like something to endure. He flipped the next pancake, didn't burn it, and set it gently on a plate. "Sit," he said softly. "Eat. You're home right now, not forever. Not promised, not forced, just right now." And the girls, finally, did not question it. The sun was only beginning to push soft gold over the hills when the knock came, sharp, hard, too measured to belong to a neighbor or delivery driver. It echoed through the house like a warning shot. Mila froze mid-bite, spoon suspended. Arya's entire body went rigid, blanket slipping from her shoulders as if someone had snatched the warmth away. Elon felt it instantly. Not worry, recognition. Danger had found them. He stepped forward before either girl could move, his voice calm in a way calm becomes when it has no other choice. "Stay here." Mila's hand reached out, grabbing his sleeve without thinking. Her eyes didn't look frightened. They looked resigned, the expression of a child who has already learned that safety never lasts. Arya didn't look at him. Her gaze was locked on the front door, her jaw clenched so tightly her lips trembled with the effort of holding fear inside. Elon lowered his voice, steady but gentle. "I won't let anything happen to you." The door knocked again. 2 sharp hits, steady, confident. Not asking, announcing. Elon moved through the living room, his footsteps silent against the polished floor. He didn't rush. He didn't hesitate. He opened the door. Standing on the porch was a man in a dark jacket. Tall, clean-shaven, posture military precise. His eyes were the kind that didn't look at you. They assessed you. Cataloged you. Weighed your weaknesses. The man offered a thin, practiced smile. "Good morning, Mr. Musk. Sorry to bother you so early." Elon didn't return the smile. "Who are you?" The man didn't answer right away. He glanced past Elon, just slightly, like he was scanning the interior. Looking for someone. Or 2 someones. "My name is DeWitt," he said finally. "I'm here about 2 children who went missing last night." Elon stepped forward just enough so the doorway blocked the view inside. "Missing," Elon repeated. His voice was neutral. But his eyes? Steel. "Yes," DeWitt continued easily. "Sad situation. Their mother? Very unstable woman. Took them from school records, moved constantly. They're better off with their guardian. He's extremely worried." "Guardian?" The word hissed across the threshold like poison. Arya had told the truth. Someone believed they owned them. "May I come inside?" DeWitt asked. "No," Elon said. Not loud, not aggressive. Just final. DeWitt's smile flickered, the polite facade cracking at the edges. "I believe the children are here." "You believe wrong." Now the smile vanished completely. "Mr. Musk," DeWitt said, and his tone was not professional now. It was something else. Colder. Familiar in the way predators are familiar. "This doesn't involve you. Hand them over and you won't be part of what comes next." What came next? The sentence wasn't a threat. It was a promise. For a moment, the 2 men simply stood there, one with power earned, one with power taken. Then Elon spoke, calm, sharp, unshakable. They are not property. DeWitt's jaw hardened. And you think you can protect them? Elon didn't blink. Yes. Something flickered in DeWitt's expression. Not fear, but calculation. Measuring risk. Deciding how far to push before the consequences outweighed control. He stepped back. This isn't over. Elon closed the door before the last syllable finished. The silence that followed was thick, pulsing with the heartbeat of the house. When he turned around, Arya was standing in the hallway. She hadn't run. She hadn't hidden. She had watched. Her small figure looked impossibly small in the vast room, but her voice carried something older than childhood. You shouldn't help us, she whispered. He doesn't stop. Elon knelt in front of her, not to her height, but to her world. A world where safety was a story people told, not something real. Elon, she said again, her voice cracking. He will hurt you. Elon took her trembling hands in his voice a whisper but stronger than anything he had built or launched or engineered in his life. I'm not letting him take you, he said. Not now. Not ever. Mila climbed off the couch and wrapped her arms around his waist. Arya hesitated, only for one breath, then joined them, their small bodies folding into him like they had been waiting years to do so. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was human, raw, real, a promise sealed in silence. And in that moment, Elon realized the fight ahead wouldn't be solved with money, or influence, or strategy. It would be solved with heart. The one thing his brother left him, the one thing he'd spent years burying, and the one thing these girls had just returned to him. And he wasn't going to lose them. Not to fear. Not to the world. Not to anyone. Morning rose slowly over Los Angeles, warm light melting into the spaces where darkness had once settled like dust. But inside the house, the shift wasn't just the sun. It was something deeper, something that felt like fate resuming a path that had been interrupted years ago. Elon stood beside the kitchen counter, his hands wrapped around a mug he hadn't touched. He wasn't strategizing. He wasn't planning. He was simply present, something he had forgotten how to be. The twins sat at the table, legs swinging beneath the chairs, eating pancakes with syrup smudged across their hands. Mila giggled softly when Arya tried to act serious and failed, her attempts at composure dissolving into a small, reluctant smile. It was such a tiny moment. Just breakfast, just warmth, just children being children, but to them, it was a miracle. To Elon, it was a memory waiting to be made. He sat with them, not above them, not beside but with, and listened. Not to details, not to trauma, not to explanations, just to their laughter, their voices, their presence, the way Mila tapped her spoon against the bowl in rhythm, the way Arya tucked stray hair behind Mila's ear, a gesture too gentle and too old for her age. He knew what had to happen. The police couldn't handle this. Not the legal system. Not public reporting. If this became a headline, the girls would vanish into bureaucracy, lost like hundreds before them. The man who claimed to be their guardian would find ways to manipulate the system, twist it, exploit it. Men like him always did. This needed to be done the way Cade would have done it. Quietly, directly, completely. Elon picked up his phone, not to call lawyers, but someone else entirely. A voice answered on the first ring. You don't call unless it's serious, the man said. It's serious, Elon replied. There were no questions. No hesitation. Just, send the address. When Elon set the phone down, the twins were watching him, not afraid now, but aware. They were smart. They understood moves as they were being made. Survival had trained them to read between silences. Are you going to fight him? Arya asked. Not with fists, Elon said. With truth, Mila frowned. Truth doesn't always win. No, Elon agreed. But this time it has help. Hours later, in a small community clinic across the city, a nurse looked up as Elon stepped through the door with the twins at his side. The nurse's eyes widened. not in recognition of him, but in recognition of them. Their names had been on missing person notices. Not the public kind. The quiet kind. The kind circulated among emergency wards and women's shelters and safe houses. She led them down the hall. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and lavender soap. A curtain was drawn around a bed near the window. Behind it, a woman sat propped up on pillows, her hair tangled, her skin pale from exhaustion. Her eyes looked like someone who had fought too many nights without sleep. "Mama," Mila whispered. No hesitation, no fear, just relief. Sarah Diaz turned her head. At first, confusion flickered. Then her face broke. No sound, just a rush of tears as her daughters threw themselves into her arms. She held them so tightly her fingers trembled, her shoulders shook, her breath came in uneven, gasping waves. Elon stepped back, not intruding, just witnessing. The way Cade would have. Sarah looked up at him through blurred vision. "You're him," she whispered. "The brother," Elon nodded. "They found me." "No," she replied, shaking her head weakly. "He found you. A long time ago. I just led them where he pointed." Her hand trembled as she reached into the bedside drawer. She pulled out a folded envelope, worn from years of being opened and reread. She held it out. "It's from Cade. For you." Elon's throat tightened. He unfolded it slowly, his brother's handwriting, undeniable, familiar in a way that pierced. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it. But they did. Don't build the world so big you forget to look for what's small. Don't forget love. Don't forget me. Take care of them." Elon closed his eyes, breath shuddering through him. This was never an accident. Never coincidence. Never chance. This was a promise finishing its journey. Outside, the sky had turned clear, blue stretching wide and open. Inside, the girls held their mother. Elon stood with them, not as savior, not as billionaire, not as the world's loudest name, but as a brother, a man who remembered. A man who found what he thought he lost. A man who, for the first time in years, felt whole. The story didn't end in rescue. It began in reunion. A family not born by blood alone, but chosen, protected, claimed. The moment the cans hit the floor in that grocery aisle, everything changed. Not just for the girls. For him,